Hi, I'm Bill Bradley. Join me for a recent excerpt of American Voices. But first, here on American Voices, we're curious about people's stories and the memories they hold close to their heart. And so we ask author Sheila Bair, is there a snack or meal that reminds you of your childhood? Here's the former head of the FDIC, Sheila Bair.
This is Sheila Bair. I think one of my most favorite foods from my childhood is cake icing. Well, my sister and I were small. We had a babysitter. Her name was Frida Lessman. She was wonderful, just a big-hearted, wonderful person. And we would go over to her house. She would sit for us over at her house. She had this lovely old two-story home, and she would watch us. But she also had another job making wedding cakes, and she was really good at making wedding cakes. And she would let us watch her as she would decorate these cakes. And she would make the most amazing roses on these cakes. Just, she was a master with this tube of icing and the delicate flowers, all different colors, and then the green leaves around it and the stems. I mean, it was just a masterpiece. And so we would watch while she would create these wonderful cakes. And at the end, she would get out some wax paper and she'd cut a few squares out, and she would make each of us a couple of roses for us to eat, just the icing. So this was like the highlight of the visit, right? And so we would carefully take our wax paper with our lovely icing flowers and go over to sit down in front of her TV and sit cross-legged and watch some show, probably I Love Lucy or Mr. Ed or something like that. And we would very lovingly, very slowly eat and savor these wonderful roses because we wanted to show those roses respect because they truly were works of art. She was a widow, widowed fairly young. She had grown children who lived in the area, but not immediately close to her. And so she was very self-sufficient, and she was just fun. She had this old '56 Chevy, black and white. I remember, probably viewed as a hot car by some teenager, but this was just something a car she'd had for a long time. And she didn't like to drive, but she did it. And she'd take us out to, wherever. She'd take us to the park. There was an old reservoir with a beach. We'd go out there sometimes. So there were different places she would drive us. And we, of course, would sit in the back seat because we were small. And we remember, I just still have a vivid memory of watching her drive that old Chevy. It had this huge steering wheel, and she was a tiny little lady. She was probably, 4'11" or something. And she would just sit gripping that steering wheel so tight. And she was so stiff when she would drive. As you could tell, she was just tense the whole time. But she would always get us where we were going to go. She had a very small backyard with a walnut tree. I remember we would go out there and pick walnuts for her, and we'd help her crack them and store them. We played dress up. She had these old clothes. She let us play dress up. I remember she had this one kind of fur boa that we get to wrap around our necks. She had a big vanity where she'd let us put makeup on and things for our dress up. It was really a child's paradise. She was just fun and kind and sweet, not judgmental. So it was kind of your classic small town Kansas experience staying with her. But outside my family, she was the person I loved the most and held dearest and remember the most vividly. We just loved her so much. And my sister and I went back to Kansas recently on a nostalgia trip. And we went to our hometown cemetery in Independence, Kansas. That's where we grew up and where she lived. And we found her grave. And we placed flowers on her headstone. But I got to tell you, none of them were more beautiful than the wonderful flowers that she made for us. I tear up even thinking about her, especially when I see a decorated cake. I instantly think of her. It's a food that reminds us of Mrs. Lessman and some very happy childhood days. I would talk about Mrs. Lessman to my children. I know Kathleen did the same with her boys. My sister did the same with her boys. We shared stories about her, how sweet she was and how much fun she was.
That was the author Sheila Bair. She's the former head of the FDIC and the author of the picture books Shark Scam, Daisy Bubble, and Princess Persephone and the Money Wizards. Thank you for listening to American Voices here on my YouTube channel. For more interviews celebrating the goodness and creativity of the American people, click the subscribe button below.